No, I can't think of anywhere I'd rather be tonight than right here with our candidates tonight, listen about what they have to say and their positions on issues and policies. We really appreciate all of you again being here tonight. Normally, who stands here is not me. It is John Bedoin, who was formerly with the Lee Summit Journal. The candidates forum tonight is being sponsored by both the Chamber of Commerce and the Lee Summit Journal. John has moved on to a new career. He now works in the bureaucracy for the city of Lee Summit. We're glad to have him in that capacity. I'll see how long he lasts. I'm sure his writing is a bit restricted these days, not quite as advanced with a pen and not as fluent with a pen, but I'm sure he'll be a great asset to our community. We really appreciate that. I did want to introduce a couple of candidates that are here today that don't have contested races. We have with us Senator Will Kraus of the 8th Senate District. Senator. We also have House of Representative member Sheila Solon, both Lee Summit and Blue Springs, in the 31st District. And we have House of Representative Mike Searpoy. Mike, would you stand for the 30th District? Those are uncontested races this year, so congratulations to all of you. We'll be back. We look forward to working with you as well. I'm Mark Dickey. I'm the Vice President of the Chamber of Commerce. On behalf again of the Lee Summit Chamber, our Board of Directors, our Governmental Relations Committee, and the Lee Summit Journal, we welcome you here tonight. We have a very distinguished moderator who has been with us many times and is going to conduct the rest of the business tonight. I'm going to turn it over to Carl Chinnery.
Welcome to the 76th Annual Candidates Forum. And thank you for the candidates for appearing as well as the audience. This is a wonderful turnout. Before we hear from the candidates, I wanted to show you the outline of the format for tonight. Each candidate is given 3 minutes for opening remarks. We will have the candidates for the 34th Missouri House District go first, and the candidates for outline for 35th. And lastly, Mr. Turk, and we have not heard from Emmanuel Cleaver whether he's going to show or not, but we assume not since he's not here. After the opening comments by the candidates, we will have a question and answer session. Questions that are generated by you, the audience. We have cards up here that have already been filled out with questions. We may or may not get to all of them. If you want to ask additional questions, the cards are in the back, the index cards. Fill them out and bring them forward. All the questions will be asked to each candidate, irrespective of their office. We do not accept questions that are targeted to a specific candidate. We ask the candidates to keep their answers to 30 seconds, and you will be timed. Both the opening remarks and answer to the audience questions will be timed. We ask the candidates to please honor the time limits. When you entered the room this evening, you may have noticed the candidates' profiles on the back table. The booklet provides information on each candidate that submitted those questions and answers. Lastly, if time permits, we will provide 1 minute to each candidate at the end of the forum for any closing remarks. Prior to tonight, the opening order of the candidates were randomly selected by drawing names of those candidates who have committed to participate. So, first up will be the candidates for the 34th District. First, Rebecca Reber. Second, Dale Murphy. 35th District, Ken Duvall and Jerry Cross. And lastly, the U.S. House Representative, the 5th District candidate, Jacob Turk. Thank you, and we will be beginning the opening remarks. First, Rebecca Reber.
Testing.
Hi.
30 seconds have gone by. That.
It's not my forte, technology. My name is Rebecca Reber. I want to thank the Chamber and the Lee Summit Journal for hosting this event. And in particular, I'm glad that it was an inside venue, so we didn't have to worry about rain out. My husband and I, Rick have Lived in Lee Summit for 17 years at Oak Tree Farm. Our kids have gone to Lee Summit schools. My grandson, Raiden, lives with us, and he's attending Richardson Elementary currently. It's a wonderful little elementary school. I retired from a public school classroom after 17 years of teaching this past June. The faux pas in the current federal government, currently and ongoing, have kind of reinforced my feelings about big government. I don't think big government is efficient, nor is it effective. I hope that, I heard one time that government is an organism that grows all on its own. It grows and expands, and our job as citizens is to be aware of that and push back against that. So I hope that I can help do that in January down in Jefferson City. As a legislator and a public school educator, I will always support Missouri Public Schools. I am devotedly pro-life and will vote that way. And I will also always support Missourians' constitutional Second Amendment right. Now to jobs. I walked the 34th District 1.5 times, talked to hundreds of people, and I know firsthand that this economy in Missouri is not working for all Missourians, even some of us here in Lee Summit. There are some things that we can do in the legislature to help with that. I think we need to look at some of our burdensome and redundant regulation that our job producers have to, the hoops that they have to jump through. I think we need to do something about tax reform, have a broader base, lower taxes overall. And then we need to do something about our tort system in Missouri, including things like lost pay legislation, so that our current job producers don't have to spend so much money and time defending themselves against frivolous lawsuits. We need to do something about jobs in the state of Missouri. And I think that there are things that we can do to create more jobs, better paying jobs in Missouri, keep the people that are here, and bring more job producers to the state. I filed for this seat because I believe in the citizen legislature. I think we need more school teachers in our legislature, truck drivers, healthcare workers, clerical workers, and so forth, legislating for us down in Jeff City. I appreciate all of you coming out on a rainy night, and I appreciate you being informed voters as well. And I appreciate your support on November 4th. Thank you.
Next is Dale Mercer.
Good evening. My name is Dale Mercer. I'm running from the Missouri House, District 34. I'm a 62-year resident of the state of Missouri, 19-year resident of what is currently District 34. My wife Susie and I have 4 children. We currently have 3 grandchildren. I'm a General Motors retiree. I retired in 2003 and went to work for Penn National Union, where I continue to work full-time. I received a Bachelor of Science degree in History with a minor in International Politics from Missouri Western State University in 2007, graduating with honors. I'm running for this office because I'm concerned about the direction of politics in general and the Missouri legislature in particular. I'm concerned about the lack of full funding for public education. As I walk my district, full funding of public education is the #1 issue that citizens voice to me. The future of our state and this district rests upon the children we educate in our public schools. Local control of these schools must be ensured, and we must find a way to fully fund public education according to the formula adopted by the Missouri legislature, which now underfunds our schools. I pledge to work tirelessly until this goal is met. I also have a couple of ideas to ensure this funding. The current legislature opposes the return of $8 billion federal dollars to the Missouri economy over the next 6 years by refusing to reform and expand Medicaid. The expansion of reform would create 24,000 jobs, add $9.6 billion to the statewide economy, and generate an added $856 million in state and local taxes. These are not my numbers, it's a study by the University of Missouri. The jobs created and the revenue generated by Medicaid expansion are too large to ignore any longer, and I will work incessantly to bring these dollars and jobs home to Missouri. We must also address the burgeoning flow of cash into our state political system. over $100,000 was spent on the primary election in District 34, a job that pays $36,000 a year. My opponent and her supporters were responsible for around $60,000 of that total. I spent $600 on the primary. I'll spend about $3,000 on my total campaign. I think $5,000 is more than enough for a state legislature seat. Comprehensive campaign finance and lobbying reform must be a priority in the new legislature. This legislation would be aligned with public school funding, as legislators currently have no choice but to work in the interest of those who fund these bloated campaigns. Make no mistake, this means money. Whether in allowing payday loan shops to charge exorbitant interest rates or removing sales tax from membership statewide, these donors must be repaid. Comprehensive campaign finance and lobbying reform will remove the need for these payments. Thank you very much, and thank you for coming.
Next, we'll move to the 35th District. First is Ken Duval.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming out. It's always wonderful to see citizens who are engaged, not just out the polls in the midterm election, but also coming out to learn about the candidates. And I'm sure even if the Royals game hadn't been washed away, you all would have been here anyway, right? Yes. Well, it's wonderful to see you all out, getting to know about us. And I've been spending the last several months definitely trying to get to know each and every one of you. I've been out knocking on doors, figuring out what it is that we here in Lee Summit care about, and what issues are crucial to us. Now, so tonight you're going to hear more about who we are, and I'll just introduce my personal side of things a little bit, because when I knock on your doors, we all talk about the campaign trail, but a little bit about me personally. My wife and I, both born and raised here in Missouri. We're very much looking forward to raising our family here in Lee Summit. My wife, the tenants here, we're looking forward to our first child here in a few days, and it's made for a hectic fall, but we're definitely looking forward to getting through it. And when I'm not at home working on the nursery or not on the campaign trail knocking on your doors, I spend my time as a business attorney defending local and area small businesses, making sure they're employed, because as all of you know, many businesses subjected to frivolous lawsuits, so I definitely make sure that our job creators in the region are protected, and that they can go on creating jobs and people can stay employed. So that's a little bit about me personally and professionally. Well, let's talk about the issues and why you're here tonight. So why am I running? I'm running because all of you I've spoken to on the doors, are tired of career politicians and tired of people taking public office and using it for personal gain, or just using it in ways that divide us and don't unite us. So we need regular people, someone who hasn't been in politics, in office. And I am running here for the first time. I would like to be just a regular person in office representing the three issues I see that we need to confront: jobs, schools, and helping out our seniors. So jobs, we need to make sure that when we have tax relief, it's for the middle class, and it's for everyone. And it's not just a corporate handout. Let's support our small businesses and not large out-of-state corporations that don't create jobs here. Let's support our schools. Every candidate up here is going to say they support schools. But the record will tell you, some candidates do, some don't. If we're going to fully fund our schools, we need to actually stand behind that and actually do it. And actually make sure that Jefferson City is doing its part. Because here in Lee Summit, we're proud of our schools. And we pay our taxes. But is Jeff City taking in what they should be for our schools? They haven't been, but they need to. And finally, seniors. Seniors built this community. My wife and I and others were lucky to be in a city like Lee Summit where people have built up this town. But do we take care of our seniors on the back end when they're done with their work and they want to go into retirement? We need to make sure that seniors get affordable and accessible and quality health care and can stay in the homes that they built. Ken Duval, I'd love to have your support November 4th.
Next is Gary Cross.
Good evening, I'm Gary Cross. I'm currently representing the 35th District. I've lived in this town for 54 years. I've had an interest in continuing public office for quite some time. Actually, I state I never even considered it. The reason being is because of the fact that I had family. I did never want to go back in life. And if these two girls say, Dad, you remember when we did such and such? And I say, honey, I was at the Capitol. This is the reason why I stayed out of public office until my kids were gone. Fortunately, to this day, this lady right here, I've been with for 35 years. I don't have to go back in life and rewrite that chapter. These two girls, I'll be grandpa next month, and this young lady, I'm very proud of it. The two girls said to me, Dad, we're gone. It's okay, run for office. I told them I want to run for office, I want to make a difference in this community. In the meantime, in the 30 years that I did run for office, I worked in small business. It gave me an opportunity to have life's experience. I think it's extremely important. I'm not a career politician, I never was. I had a career first, and then I ran for office. One of the best preparations I had running for office, though, needless to say, was having cancer. I was diagnosed with prostate cancer, and I had nothing but praise for St. Luke's Hospital. I was treated superbly. Today, my health is good. I'm very, very fortunate. I consider myself very blessed. But I do want to make a difference. I want to talk about education. Number one, the Missouri legislature is the closest today of ever fully funding the school formula. Since in this last year we've appropriated money to the education, yet the appropriation, the increase in education in 2013 of $100 million, 66 for K through 12, 33 point some for higher education, that was withheld by the governor. This last year we enacted another funding for education. The governor has withheld that. However, I can show you here by the newspaper right after veto session, funding was released. He released the funding, and our 7th district has picked up the funding. Small business is extremely important in this town, and that we become burdensome free to our small businesses. People are overregulated and they're taxed down. This is two things I've dealt with when I talk to people face to face. So we do want to make this a marketable town. Employment, we have more tax-paying citizens. A, for our police, our fire, our school districts. B, we want to make Lee Summit the location. It's about creating competition. I'm not interested in meeting competition with Kansas. It's about this community and the reason, give them reasons to locate here. Thank you.
Now the House District number 5 candidate, Jacob Turk.
Thank you for that introduction, Carl. Have you been here for all 76 as a moderator? Just thought I'd ask.
Some things are funny.
That was fun. Thank you to the Lee Summit Chamber for including the 5th District congressional candidates. And thank you all for coming out tonight. Showing up is such an important job in our representative republic. And it's important for our representatives to show up. You came tonight with questions. And you may be asking yourself, why is he different? What is he going to do differently? Well, I'm running for United States Congress because I want you and those you love to be safer and more prosperous and freer than you are today. As a Marine veteran, I know what it means to sign the dotted line, to sacrifice for this country. And one of the issues I will take up in Washington, D.C. when I arrive is protecting our military men and women. Those who protect us sometimes need protection from Congress. The multiple deployments have brought them back, broken in spirit and in body. And they need somebody to stand up for them, just like they have stood up for us. And I will do that. And I will do that on the floor of Congress. As a small business owner, I know the alphabet soup of government regulation, EPA, OSHA, IRS, is just killing the job creation engine of small business. I will run interference when I am in DC with the bureaucracy to get them off of the back of those who create the jobs for the rest of us, so that our children have a brighter future than they have today. And as a man who strives to live with integrity every day, I will treat you with respect and with honesty about what our government is doing and what it's not doing. I look forward to receiving your questions because I want to hear what's on your heart and what burdens that you carried in here tonight and answer your questions. Thank you for being here.
First question will be to the House representatives, and we'll start at the end with Dale. And you'll have 90 seconds to answer this question. Do you support or oppose the recent pieces of legislation that legalize the use of marijuana for medical use and reduce the charges for the possession of small amounts of marijuana, and why?
I do support that legislation. I think that medical marijuana is a good thing for children who have seizures. I don't really understand how it works, but I'm told that it does work. And if it does, then yes, I most certainly support it. The decriminalization of small amounts of marijuana, I struggle with that, but I think that I would support it. We have far too many people in our prisons for small amounts of marijuana, and we're paying to house those people. And I just don't understand why would we continue to do that. It doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. So that's my answer.
Rebecca Raver.
Yes, I would support the legislation. I think what they passed was very, very limited and controlled, and it did help children with seizures. As far as decriminalization of small amounts, I would support that as well. Those people probably need rehab instead of being put into prison.
Gary Cross.
Okay, I want to clarify something about this marijuana. People think because that this legalization, the word is about hemp oil. It's about the oil that is taken and it's used for epileptic individuals. It's a last-ditch effort, and I did support it. I do not support the decriminalization of marijuana or smoking marijuana. And I will say this, I know that Colorado is talking about the repeal of the law.
Ken Duvall.
So as far as the medical use of marijuana goes, I definitely support that. And we have people in need without other options, medical options, and doctors will say that epilepsy can be treated with the substance. So I think that to help these people who are suffering, and having talked to some parents of people in Lee's Summit who want this remedy, I think we definitely need to get behind that and alleviate any kind of suffering that we can help. And as far as the decriminalization goes, I think that the government has bigger problems. We have bigger issues. We have too many people in prison. These people need rehabilitation and help. They don't need to be necessarily thrown in prison where they will become unemployable and their lives will often be worse for when they come out. So it's just something that's a lose-lose. And so while we should, of course, discourage the use, I don't think that the criminal justice system should be the first thing we turn to here in America with the overcrowded prisons we already have. We have other issues to focus on.
Okay, the next question is for Jacob Turk at the national level. What is your position on the Keystone Pipeline and/or renewable energy?
I fully support building the Keystone Pipeline. We have a situation that I think many people are unaware of on the federal level, which is why it's important that we are informed on our issues. Right now, most of that oil that's coming from North Dakota is coming via rail line. And there have been many derailments and oil spills. And so we actually have a worse environmental problem without building the Keystone Pipeline. I favor using all our energy sources of all kinds. Of course, we need to do the research to follow up on any source of energy and move towards clean energy. But in the interim, as a mechanical engineer, I know it takes time. And so in the interim, we need cheap energy to keep our economy going and to be that shining city that's on the hill that draws other people here, the best and the brightest, but that we have a thriving economy. By limiting ourselves and underwriting technology before it's ready, it's a drain on the taxpayers. So I favor lowering energy costs to using our energy here in the United States.
Now we'll return to the can start with Canada Law. Will you support expanding and reforming Medicaid, knowing that if the federal government does not uphold its financial obligations, that the legislature can eliminate the program?
Yes, like the co-host here this evening, at least on the Chamber of Commerce, like the Missouri Chamber of Commerce. It makes business sense to bring those dollars back here to Missouri. It's important to know what Medicaid expansion isn't about and what it is about. It's not about expanding the federal government. What it is about is bringing tax dollars back to Missouri that Missouri individuals and Missouri businesses have paid for. While we sit here, other states are spending money we send to the Medicaid fund. Every second, $60. Since the beginning of this year, well over $1 billion. So we are watching our money being spent in neighboring states. And why is that? I can't explain it. And that's why this Chamber of Commerce, Missouri Chamber of Commerce, business community is rallying behind this. This is a bipartisan issue, and it's something that just makes sense. And it makes sense not only economically, it makes sense for healthcare. Talk to providers at St. Luke's East, at Truman, at Lee Summit Hospital, and they will say it makes sense too. We can't afford to wait. The Missouri legislature has already waited. Waited months, waited years on this issue, and we've been watching our money being spent by others. There's no reason for that to happen. Missourians pay their taxes just like everyone else. And so Medicaid expansion is something that needs to happen.
Gary Cross.
Okay. Instead of Medicaid expansion, how about Medicaid reform? That's what I support. Supporting an investment in a Medicaid program. Sometimes when people have an investment in a healthcare program, they take a different responsibility. For example, how many people go to the emergency room for colds, flus, or viruses? That's a very expensive item. $1,600, $1,800 at the hospital? Why not make an adjustment? There's 24-hour care centers. I know there's more people today that don't have family practitioners. We have care centers built right here in Lee Summit. For those minor items like colds, flus, viruses, there's access to health care. I understand that we have a health care crisis that needs to be addressed, but we also need to give people an incentive. Not to just say, oh, well, it's not my pocketbook. It's the taxpayers. We won't worry about that. I think we need to come to a consensus, make some changes, and not wait on money from the federal government that we don't have. Thank you.
Rebecca Rayburn.
I also do not support Medicaid expansion in its current form. I think it needs to be reformed. I am very leery about taking on the federal government as a business partner. I know the proposition says that we could end the program if and when the federal government reneges on their part, but that would be very, very difficult to do once people are signed up in the program.
Dale Mercer.
The United States government has never missed a Medicaid payment. We'll make it clear that if they do, we'll ground the program. We're paying these people health care already. We need to get these people insurance. Everyone agrees that preventive care lowers health care costs. If you have health care insurance, you get preventive care. It just makes sense. I'll read these numbers again. $8 billion over 6 years, 24,000 jobs created, $9.6 billion to the statewide economy, and $856 million in state and local tax revenue. To leave that in Washington, D.C., to be wasted on some other program. Makes no sense. It's your money. Let's get it down.
Okay, Jacob Turk, the following question, and I'll give you 3 minutes for this one. What is your position on the border issues, mainly the children issue and the terrorist issue?
We do have a crisis on our borders. It has been created by our federal government. It's been created by the fact that they have broken the trust of the American people and not enforced our laws, not enforced our sovereignty, not enforced our security. I believe in border security first, and that includes all ports of entry. That includes our northern border, our southern border, our airports, our harbors, so that we protect our sovereignty and the security of our families and their safety. Right now, we have the opportunity down at the border to be who we are. And we will treat those children humanely, and we will treat them with the charity that are in the hearts of the American people. But the bigger issue is the federal government keeps creating these humanitarian crises by not enforcing our laws. So number one would be border security. And then the American people want a solution to our immigration issues. I have a daughter-in-law that's a naturalized citizen, and the hoops that she had to jump through were just stunning. The money that she had to pay was stunning. We have a broken immigration system. We need to be able to bring the best and the brightest. We need to decide who we bring into the country and who we say no to. And because of the porous borders, northern, southern, the harbors, the airports, we have an issue with terrorism coming into this country. And as a Marine veteran, I know we have enemies around the world who would do us harm and who would do everything they could to kill those we love and to attack us where we sleep, in our neighborhoods, in our houses. And we must take our security of our borders seriously to prevent this threat from coming to Main Street, the Summit, or any place else in the United States. Thank you.
Dale Mercer, specifically, what is your plan to bring jobs to Missouri?
I think that the way we bring jobs to Missouri is to get out of the way of small business. I know a lot of you here at this Chamber of Commerce, a lot of you are small business owners. I'm not gonna make you a bunch of promises. I'm gonna drop all regulations. Here's what I will promise you. You call me, I'll come. I will look at a regulation that you think is too burdensome and isn't needed. If you can convince me, and I can convince myself that that's true, you won't find anyone who will work harder to get rid of that piece of regulation. It only makes sense. That's all I can promise you. I'm not going to promise you, oh, I'm just going to get rid of regulation, because I don't think that makes sense. And I have a lot to learn about this. I hope you can teach me. We can work together, and we can get rid of what isn't needed and keep what is needed. That would be my promise to you. Thank you very much.
Rebecca Rader.
Again, we need tax reform in this state. I would suggest broadening it and lowering taxes for all, everybody. We do need regulation reform, and I would suggest looking at all the regulation. I think most of it, or much of it, is redundant, overbearing, and it keeps businesses from thinking Missouri is an attractive place to set up shop. And then also we need tort reform. Again, I think that loser pay legislation makes a lot of sense to me. If you bring a frivolous lawsuit, you pay everybody's legal costs. And right now, businesses are spending lots of money, compensating for legal things that haven't even happened, overcompensating. Those would be my three biggest.
Gary Cross.
Repeat the question.
Specifically, what is your plan to bring jobs to Missouri?
I think we need to go back and look at our current status right now and determine what is keeping people out of the state of Missouri. Is it a burdensome regulations? Is it tort? Is it taxes? What is it? Let's find out. Let's make adjustments. In fact, there's a lot of companies that have looked at our state to locate, whether it's Lee Summit, Kansas City, whatever. Find out what the problem is. What was there a problem with maybe the environment? Was there a problem with the education system? What is it? And I would say let's start from there. Let's work there. Let's learn from some of the mistakes we made. I can tell you this, we are losing businesses here in the state of Missouri. They're going across state lines, and they're continuing to go. And that's going to become a very expensive burden to the community. Thank you.
Ken Duval.
So creating jobs in the region comes down to three simple things: tax policy, education, and infrastructure. So tax policy. What did we see this past year? We saw tax policy skewed heavily toward corporate interests. We need to make sure that small businesses, sole proprietorships, included among those, that are looked out for. We need to make sure it's broad-based tax incentives and tax credits that help Missouri-grown businesses and not the corporate interests that often don't create jobs here. We need to make sure we have good schools so that people want to come here and bring their kids here, and the employees here. We're doing a great job here in Lee Summit. We need to make sure school districts across the state are good so that when employers think about coming here, they can tell their employees with a straight face, this would be a great place to raise your family. And finally, infrastructure. It's dilapidated across the state. It's a shame that in the state where the first mile of interstate was laid, that our roads have come to the condition they're in. Now, the legislature hasn't taken care of that either. You saw that they gave corporate handouts earlier this year, only to ask the voters to impose upon themselves a sales tax to bail out the roads. Well, the voters weren't buying that because they saw no connection between the sales tax and the roads. So we need legislators who are going to get in there and be proactive about our infrastructure. Build it up so that and get employers to come here and have good schools, good roads, good tax credits.
Jacob Turk. What role should the U.S. government play in farming?
Well, I'm from rural Indiana, so I was going to make a joke, but I won't because that usually doesn't work. So, the federal government needs to get out of the way. We have a huge problem with the EPA getting in the way of food production in this country. Out in California, they've had to just shut down the water to some fields because there is some little esoteric being that might be hurt by the food production our families need so that we can have affordable food. Right now, they're looking at expanding the EPA's ability to regulate every ditch across America. Literally, anything that gathers water, they're claiming that they can control. The federal government is supposed to take things at the interstate level, not the intrastate level. And unfortunately, the EPA, OSHA, they've gone beyond their original mandates, which their original mandates were to protect this environment and protect workers. And now they've gone beyond that to getting into the way of productive citizens and in farming to produce the food that we all need at a cost that we can pay. So the federal government needs to pull back. And when I'm in D.C., I will hear bells ringing. Thank you.
Next question will be addressed first to Ken Duval. What is your position on right to work?
When we look at issues like that, we need to think about what's best for the middle class. And again, I don't think the legislature's been looking out for the middle class, it's been looking out for those interests at the top. So when we look at something like that legislation, we need to ask ourselves, are we willing to give up those gains, we as a middle class have worked so long, so hard to fight for? Safer workplaces, better health plans, decent wages. Are we willing to put all those in jeopardy? For those states that have adopted right to work, well, I do believe Kansas is the right work state. How are things going over there? You all read the papers. I don't need to tell you that. Kansas is a disaster right now. Both because of that policy and their irresponsible tax policy, giving out those corporate handouts, and look where they're at now. They can't fund their schools. The credit agency ratings. They're not partisan. They just crunch the numbers, and what do they say about Kansas? It's a disaster. It's slashed their ratings. We don't need policies like that. We don't need to go down Kansas's path. As someone born and raised here in Missouri, I don't want to see us travel that path. I want us to go our own way and continue creating jobs in our way. We don't need to copy them. Let's do things the Missouri way. We don't need to look next door.
I was elected to the legislature in 2010. The first session I was in was in 2011. Every year, the word right to work had come up in that legislature. So here it comes to the floor this year. And I said to myself, you know, it's time to put this thing to bed right now. I voted for you people to make the decision at the ballot box whether you want right to work in the state of Missouri. And my attitude was this: you make the decision, let's be done with it, because I've got other things to work with. Thank you.
Rebecca Rader.
I agree. I would like to see it on the ballot so voters could choose. I think workers should be able to choose to work and whether or not they want to support a union or not. Police people and fire people are not mandated to join the union, and yet they do so in great numbers because they feel like the union represents them well, and it's worth it to them to belong.
Dale Mercer.
I've worked in a union, and I now work without a union. There's not a great deal of difference, but I would rather work with the union. I personally do not support right to work. I wouldn't mind seeing it on the ballot. I don't think it would pass. Unions got wages and benefits where they are in this state and in this country. And I would hate to see that deteriorate. I don't have a union right now, I don't have a contract. I just lost $1,000 of vacation time every year just because the company said we don't do that anymore. And that hurts. I'm 62 years old. I could draw Social Security, but I choose to continue to work. And I like to work, and that's why I want to work for you. So again, I don't support it. If you do, let's vote.
Nika Clerk. What do you think the government's action should be to fight Ebola? This one may take a little bit less time.
Eradicate it. One thing, going back to our border security, we need to use common sense. When people come back from the infected countries, then we need to look at a quarantine, particularly cutting off non-nationals, non-citizens from those areas to travel to America would be a first step in the right direction, not to issue visas right now until this virus is under control. I do believe that CDC has a role to play. I don't believe that our Marines signed up to be doctors and nurses, and so they shouldn't be sent over there. There are military men and women who aren't physicians, but any doctor or physician here should be fully supported by the CDC to go over and help in that crisis and figure out what we can do about this virus. The research dollars going in, we spent a lot of money on research on Ebola, and we figured out a few things that help. But the biggest thing is let's make sure that it doesn't cross our borders any more than it has, and that we take a common sense approach to those who come to this country. Thanks.
Dale Mercer. Do you believe Missouri's income tax should be lowered?
I am skeptical about lowering anyone's taxes while public schools are underfunded. Again, it's the number one thing people tell me as I walk the district. They want their public schools fully funded. I don't think the that they would rather lower their taxes than fund their schools. We had a choice on the ballot to support veterans with the lottery ticket. That lottery money goes to schools. People love veterans more than anything I can think of, and they voted not to have a veterans lottery ticket. And I think that's because they want that money in their schools. They want their public schools fully funded. Believe me, I would love to pay less taxes. I would love to lower your taxes. But until public schools are fully funded, I don't think we can do that. I think it's not what the people want.
I think Missouri taxpayers are stressed right now, and as legislators, we need to remember that at all times. Every dollar that's spent by the state has been taken out of your pocketbook. And I trust Missouri taxpayers and Missouri citizens to spend their own money.
Thank you all.
We've had the top tax rate for quite some time. I think I'm saying this right, I think 6% or $9,000. We've had that for a while. I think we need to take a look at it. You know, you can make minimum wage and qualify for the top tax rate in this nation or in this state. So I think we need to go back. We need to reevaluate the tax rates as far as income earners. Thank you.
And Mark Duval.
So looking at income tax rates in the state, in fact, looking at the actions of the legislature this past year reveals something telling. A lot of legislators have touted the so-called tax cuts that were given earlier this year. When you look at it, most people, most of us, receive a tax cut of 0.5%. 0.5%. Less than probably $100 in a year. It's not much relief. If you get what's called so-called pass-through income, you get for corporate entities, certain corporate entities, 25%. Does that sound equitable to you? 0.5%, 25%. 50 times difference. If we're going to have income tax relief, let's make sure it's broad-based. Let's make sure it's for all of us, the working middle class, and not just the people at the top. And as somebody already mentioned, we do need to make sure we're paying our bills. That bill that was passed with that 25% pass-through, that's going to cost, at least some of its schools, over $800 per pupil in coming years. That's a projection, over $800 per pupil. So what's that mean? That our students are going to have to do with less, or we're going to have to make up for it locally with another tax levy. So is that really tax relief at the end of the day? I don't think so. So we just need to be sensible and fair, broad-based if we're going to do tax relief.
Should the fight against ISIS and the terrorist organizations be taken on the ground? Ground troops.
I spent 3 years volunteering for this country to defend all of us. Every one of you, and everyone that was alive during that time. If we have a national security interest, then we go in. But we only go in if we go in to win and to get back out. Far too often, these decisions are being made by politicians who forget about the humanity of the men and women that serve in the service. My opponent, the incumbent, Manuel Cleaver, railed and railed about the war on terror when George Bush was president. He has been silent since a member of his party became president. As a Marine, I will defend the military men and women who protect us from these political games. It is serious when we spill our blood. And there better be a reason, and the president needs to come before the Congress and make that case, or we simply do not go.
What is your proposal to fix transportation funding in the state of Missouri?
Transportation funding in Missouri, we've been put in a tough situation. So here's how we were led to where we're at right now. So I mentioned the income tax cut skewed towards corporations earlier this year. So the legislature does that, cuts funding across the board, and then realizes, well, you know, with bill to pay coming up, we have roads we need to pay for. Infrastructure in the state's falling apart. So what are we going to do? Well, let's ask the voters to raise their own sales tax. Impose the sales tax on themselves, even though sales tax doesn't really have anything actually to do with roads. And voters, you all voted against it and sent it down. And the legislature now says, well, we didn't have plan B. So now we're stuck. We're stuck in a position where revenues across the state have been slashed. The legislature just had one plan, Plan A, which was rejected by the voters, and now we're in a tough position. And so going forward, we're going to have to examine all options on the table, because it's something that has to be done. We need to make sure we build these roads up, because again, we're going to attract employers to the region. They want good infrastructure. That's schools, that's roads, and that's utilities. So we need to examine all options, but it's a shame that we've been put in a box here.
Gary Cross.
I had sent out surveys regarding our roads and our highways throughout the state of Missouri. And the response I've had, as far as the solution, I've heard everything from liquor tax, internet tax, toll roads, raise the sales tax, raise, the estate tax, whatever. And the interesting thing about it, though, is that I have never had anything stronger than 20%. And I really can't call that anything that's really overwhelmingly an option. So what I'd like to do, I'd like to really come up with an option throughout the state of Missouri. I want you people to decide whether you want to raise your own taxes or whether you don't. It's much better that you do it versus us in the legislature. Thank you.
Rebecca Raver.
This is a national issue. It's not just a Missouri issue. All the states across the nation are struggling with revenue for our roads. As cars have gotten more gas efficient, and people are driving less, revenues are down. I think that as much as possible that spending money for roads should be tied to driving. I also think we need to, maybe we are not the first ones out of the box on a solution for this. We can watch and see what some of the other states are doing, the innovative ideas that they come up with. Because again, this is a problem for all of the states in our nation.
Dale Mercer.
I think you have to look at what the people voted down. They voted down sales tax. They don't want to do that. What they also voted down was that amendment or whatever it was would not have allowed an increase in the gas tax. It would not have allowed toll roads and bridges. So in a way, I think the people said, let's take a look at these things. I drive 25,000 miles a year. My wife drives 5,000. Should she pay the same amount as I do to fix roads and bridges? I don't think so. And I think that's true of all of you. You should pay in accordance to how much you drive. And I think that the only way that works is a gas tax. And I like to say, I drive. I'm willing to pay. I think I should pay. My wife, she should. She drives 5,000 miles a year. I don't know how she does that, I'll be honest with you. Because I would drive 5,000 miles a year to the grocery store. But somehow she does that. So, like I say, I think we need to take a look at what the people said. And then, I would agree with Rebecca. If some state comes up with some way that's innovative to fund this, sure, let's try it. But instead of that, we need to look at what the people say.
Jacob Turk. What is your position on Common Core and your idea for improving education from the federal level?
I'm done already. This is an issue that we've been faced with through the years. Who should control our schools? Should a bureaucracy in Washington, D.C. control our curriculum, control how our kids are taught? I disagree. It should be the parents and the educators closest to those kids that decide how the children should be educated. That's the biggest problem with Common Core, is it's a national curriculum instead of the local curriculum that we Americans have always cherished. Because in a community, we know our own kids. We know what works best for them. And so the people that are best to decide are those who elect people to the Board of Education, the parents that send their kids to the schools or teach their kids at home, and then the educators that are in the public school systems and those in the private and the parochial. That's who best decide for us. So for me, Common Core is a non-starter. Pulling back the Department of Education is where we should start, and let states and local municipalities and local school boards and the parents decide how they want their kids educated. Now, to change education in America, that's the best start that I can think of. Thank you.
The tax increment financing legislation needs to be reformed. Why or why not?
I struggle with this one also. Sure, we want to bring good jobs to Missouri. And it seems like the only way to do that is TIP. But then we don't get the money into our state and local coffers that we should get from these corporations that come in. So it's a very, very tough question, and I'm not gonna lie to you, I don't have the answer. It's something that I will learn more about, and that I will do my best to get the correct answer and take care of it. I don't want to make you promises that I'm not going to keep, and I'm here to learn. I look for help from the business people in this city, in this state, to help me understand these things and what should be done about them. And I look forward to that in my life.
Rebecca Raver.
Like Dale, this is a very complicated issue, and I will intend on listening and learning a lot initially on this issue. I do know that most tips are given at the local level and not at the state level. I think to be competitive, you have to look at this. Again, you know, some of them have worked out well. I've looked at them all very, very carefully.
Gary Cross.
I have mixed feelings on tips. There's pros and cons. You just can't just say no, you just can't say yes. It's something that has to be evaluated individually. So, like I said, there's a lot of details that need to be evaluated. Thank you.
Ken Duval.
So the situation with TIP financing is a lot like the situation at the state level, say between Missouri and Kansas with the so-called corridor. So TIP takes place at the local level, and we see municipalities trying to give best incentives for business to attract them there, just as Missouri and Kansas fight over various tax credits to attract business there. And it's good to a point. It's good when these tax credits or tips encourage business to create jobs they wouldn't otherwise create, to stimulate activity, to create jobs. But here's where it goes awry. It goes awry when it's a race to the bottom. So Missouri and Kansas are going to keep fighting like this until what? Until, wait, it's already happened. We read the reports. We're paying sometimes tens, hundreds of thousands of dollars just to trade jobs back and forth across the state line. And TIP, you see that jumping from municipality to municipality. So these things need to be used with measure and with caution, because we need to make sure that we're not just giving free rides to people just to relocate and reshuffle. It needs to be genuine, actual net gains job creation. And if we're going to give tips, if we're going to give tax credits, that's what we need to demand from businesses.
Jacob Turk. What is your position on amnesty for illegal aliens?
I don't believe in amnesty. As I stated before, my primary position is we need to secure the borders. And then I know that the American people are going to bring forth a solution. Many have been proposed. Some have been proposed as a touchback provision to their home country. Some have been that there will be a fine and a tax. But none of these things will go forward. And I've had this discussion with many advocates for illegal aliens until we secure our borders. all of our borders and ports of entry. Until we do, the American people are not going to allow an immigration solution, which we so desperately need. The no amnesty and border security first. Thanks.
Sandy Ball. Do you support background checks for firearms?
So when it comes to the Second Amendment, the Supreme Court has spoken clearly, and I think most people are in agreement. Right to bear arms is fundamental. It's fundamental to protect ourselves, our family, and our homes. And that right cannot be easily waived. You must do something to waive that right. If you've committed a dangerous felony, you give up that right. If you're mentally ill, unfortunately, obviously that right should be examined and possibly taken away. So as far as background checks go, we just need to make sure that people who have firearms, haven't done those things to waive that right. We just need to make sure that people are responsible gun owners, and again, if someone's done something against society to waive that, then we should examine that. So that's all we need to do, is just make sure that people have that right, but that if someone's done something wrong to waive it, we watch out for it.
Gary Cross.
Background checks on firearms. Number one, the person who's a convicted felon is ineligible to a firearm. I support background checks for individuals on conceal and carry. That's what's important, more so than background checks on firearms. I believe in the Second Amendment. I believe as a dad, father, that I'm responsible for the safety of my family and also the guests in my home. Thank you.
Rebecca Rayburn.
I also strongly support our Second Amendment rights to protect our homes and our family. I think some background checks are probably necessary so that we can keep dangerous people from owning and carrying and concealing firearms.
Ken Duvall.
Dale Mercer.
I'm sorry, Dale Mercer. Same thing.
I like. Thank you very much. That was fun. I like to tell people, I get a C from the NRA. I believe that would have been an A+ 10 years ago. Because about the only place we disagree is, if I'm sitting in a restaurant with my grandchildren, I don't want someone coming in and carrying an AR-15 on their back. I strongly support the Constitution, all of the Constitution. I support Supreme Court decisions that I agree with and that I don't agree with. I think the Constitution is the greatest document in the world. So let me get that out of the way. I would be in support of, I think we have enough gun laws already. We just passed a gun provision in Missouri that told us that we have a Second Amendment in the U.S. Constitution. I personally already knew that, but I guess it was nice that we got it. So I would support some background checks for people that shouldn't have guns, but if you have a gun, more power to you. I got no problem with that, because the Constitution says you can have it. And like I say, the Constitution is the greatest document in the world.
The next question is for all of the candidates. We've heard talk about, in recent years, about how people like to pay their fair share of taxes. How exactly would you define a person's fair share? Start with Dale Mercer.
Well, that's a pretty good question, and I'm not really sure how to answer that. I think that I pay my fair share right now. I think probably most of you pay your fair share. I'm not for taxing people that can't afford it anymore than they're being taxed right now. I know that it's popular to say that everyone should have some skin in the game, but believe me, I work in a place where there are people who make very little money, and they can't afford to pay more taxes. And they don't have a lot of skin in the game, but they have skin in the game as far as how hard they work and whether they work every day or not. And I can't support taxing those people anymore. I think we all have skin in the game. Like I say, I can't say that I'm going to cut anybody's taxes until public schools are fully funded, but I'm not for raising anyone's taxes either. I think that we can reapportion the money that we have and take care of fully funding public education. I think that we can
expand and reform Medicaid. And yes, I did say reform. I know that there's waste and fraud in this program, and it needs to be taken care of. And we will do our best to do that. But we need to bring that money here because it can be used in the state. And I'm sure that there are other ways to reapportion money so that we take care of what's really important to you people and myself. Thank you.
Rebecca Raber.
I think that the tax code needs to be reformed. It's ridiculous that it's so complex. I've had tax people tell me to do taxes that you could call the IRS for help, and with the same exact numbers and get different people on the phone and come up with a different result each and every time, and that's ridiculous. I would fundamentally believe in lower taxes and a broader tax base, fewer tax carve-outs for people and corporations.
Jacob Turner.
Everybody's seen the set of encyclopedias that our federal tax code is. And we need to set that aside. And there are solutions out there, and I'm open to many of them, so that people do pay the fair share. There's one called the fair tax, which is a use tax. There's a flat tax. There's also eliminating different tiers so that we have less tiers that people go through, because Americans, by and large, have supported the progressive tax rate, feeling like people who have more disposable income put a little bit more in there. But to soak the rich is not the way to go. The rich tend to be the folks that are the ones that are producing the companies, that are producing the jobs, they're producing the incomes that the rest of us can earn. So we need to look at the tax code, eliminate this convoluted system that is a special interest system. And it's one of the bones of contentions I have with my opponent. He's a special interest millionaire. That means his campaign is funded by millions of dollars from special interests. And those carve-outs in the tax code come from those special interests. I want to eliminate that tax code, go to a much simpler system, whether it's flat tax, fair tax, whatever it is spending hours and hours and hours on our taxes every year and sweating bullets, fearing the IRS is going to come on our door and take us to an audit. It needs to end, and it needs to end when I am in D.C.
Gary Cross.
We all hear the statement about the haves and the have-nots. And I've heard some people say, well, you know, he's rich. Well, everybody has a different definition of rich. You know, when I think of rich, I think sometimes rich in health, not just monetary. But for the most part, the stereotype is about what's monetary. I know there are people who have worked very hard all their life. And they work a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. Some people from agriculture, some people from small business. But they work so hard. Do they have to be punished? Not necessarily. Fundamentally, I would say this, that if you consume, you pay. If you don't consume, then you don't pay taxes. Everybody buys groceries, we pay utilities, and there's a number of items that we use on the house on a daily basis. And I think this is where our taxes come in. If you live in a $3 million house, your property taxes are going to be a little different than the guy who has a $100,000 house. Thank you.
And Duval.
So paying our fair share has become number one issue possibly in our fiscal policy the last couple of years. Won't repeat what I've already said, but I noted that tax relief given to working people in the middle class, fraction of a percent compared to 25% for those who get their income through corporate entities. So is that fair? Do those numbers sound fair to you? That's what the Missouri legislature's been up to. And I don't call that fairness. I think fairness is making sure that the working middle class, the bulk of us, are taken care of, not just those few lobbying special interests in Jefferson City. It's no wonder that on the last day of legislature in the spring, on that Friday, just like procrastination for the last day of school, on that last Friday legislature, corporate tax handouts, specific tax credits handed out like candy in the legislature. Now, what can explain that? Was that sound economic policy? Sound and fair tax policy? I don't think so. I think those were favors. And I think that's what explains why our tax code isn't fair and why it's not equitable and broad-based here in Missouri. too many carve-outs for special interests, too many tax credits that can be chalked up to lobbyists and not to sound fiscal policy. So if we're going to have fair taxes, let's get away from those lobbying interests. And let's get representation that's going to look out for the people, and get back to common sense and some practical results.
Jacob Turk, do you believe in term limits in Congress? And if so, what would be the term?
Absolutely. Unequivocally. And I've given a lot of thought to this question. It's got to be constitutional, so one house can't favor the other, so the House and the Senate needs to be the same. So it's either going to be 6 years or 12 years, one of the two. When I'm 58, I don't think I'm going to be there 12 years, but I absolutely believe in term limits. Thanks.
Jacob? I guess we're the same age.
Exactly. How come you look younger than me?
Now a question from all of the candidates again. Starting with Ken Duval. How much and where has your largest contribution come from?
I think my largest contribution to date, looking at the records, I do keep my own books, definitely, so I keep my eye on where contributions are coming from. I believe my largest contribution to date has come from the Teamsters Union. And so we referenced the right to work issue before, and again, it comes back to the middle class. It comes back to making sure that everything we fought for, decent wages, efficient health care, safe workplace, that all that's protected for the middle class. And so, of course, I make no promises to anybody who contributes to my campaign. Anybody who contributes to my campaign just sees that I represent middle class values, and that's what I'll fight for. It's important to note that while I do fundraise for my campaign, there's a difference between that, there's a difference between, that and taking personal lobbyist gifts. So here in Missouri, no limit on what you can raise for a campaign, also no limit on lobbyist gifts to you personally. Well, I will pledge to you right now, here and now, I will not accept any lobbyist gifts in the legislature, not $1. And you can ask your legislators if they've done the same thing. But I'll tell you, I will never take public office and turn it into a matter of personal gain.
Gary Cross.
In 2010, my largest contribution, I want to start there, was $1,000. It's from a guy named Dave Cross. In 2000, this year, 2014, my largest contribution was $5,000, matter of fact. It came from a guy named Dave Cross. I'm happy to say that the least summit money that I've received, I'm very proud of, and I will continue to work and earn not only their support, but I feel very honored when they contribute to my campaign. Thank you.
Becca Raver.
I also have received several $1,000s from my mother, so I do very much appreciate that. She has probably been my largest contributor. I'm sorry, I cannot remember right offhand, but all that information is readily accessible to voters. If you log onto the Missouri Ethics page, you can see every single dime that I've spent, every single dime that I've collected. Every single lobbyist gift has to be reported by the lobbyist and then by the recipient as well. So we have a very transparent system in Missouri.
I'll just get as transparent as I can be right here, right now. I'm going to spend less than $3,000 on this campaign. I feel like that's more than enough to get your name out there. I think that $5,000 as a limit for state legislatures, House members, would be more than enough money for our campaign. And believe me, these campaigns are nowhere near that. My largest contributor, my best friend, John Still, lives in Florida. We played softball together. We worked at General Motors together for 30 years. Gave me $350. I probably wasted most of it. At least that's what he would say. And this is something that means more to me, as much to me as anything in this campaign. We have to get campaign finance and lobbying under control in the state. It's out of control. like I say, $100,000 spent on the primary election in District 34. $100,000 on a primary election. What do we think? It's a $36,000 a year job. If I spent more than $3,000 to get it, I couldn't afford to go to Jeff City. So it will be the second hardest thing I work on in Jefferson City. First, fully funded public schools. Second, get campaign finance and lobbying reform. Those are my issues, and I guarantee you I will work as hard as I can to get those things done.
Gary, you wanted to clarify something you said? Go ahead.
I made a comment in 2010 that Dave Cross was the largest congregation of 1,000. He was in the primary. In the general, I received a $25 contribution from a house calling. Thank you.
Okay.
At the federal level, we are limited on individual contributions to $2,600. I've been blessed by several people who have been blessed in their lives and see me as the type of person they want to represent them in D.C. and know that I've given a lot of thought to how can I not fall into that Potomac trance that so many of our representatives do. And as I referred earlier, Cleaver is a special interest millionaire. He gets $10,000, $5,000 checks. He gets big PAC money, and we're left out of that equation. So one of the things that I gave thought to is how do we have a people's representative? And the way we have that is the people elect that person. And part of the way they do that is they contribute to that person. So I take no special interest money. We've done what we have done with very limited resources. And as somebody said tonight, I thought you were the incumbent. Well, we've done a great job with limited resources because I want to serve you. I want to serve you and your families. And I want you to have a bigger voice than the lobbyists and the special interests in Washington, D.C. And if you vote for me on November 4th, you will have somebody that listens to you because you were the ones that elected me. Thank you. What?
Why do you have the microphone? Let's
Yes.
answer this question.
Okay.
Secret Service was transferred from the Treasury Department from Homeland Security. Do you think this is the problem with recent issues with the Secret Service, or is there a bigger issue?
We have a huge issue with competency in our federal government in so many of the bureaucracies. And unfortunately, it looks like in the Secret Service, we've had some of the same issues. And this is a grave issue for our republic. A president being in danger should never happen. And the fact that there was chinks in the armor, I don't think it matters what part of the government the Secret Service is in. We need better people in better positions in all levels of our government, and particularly at our federal government, so that we can have competent bureaucracies. And we need to ferret out those that are not. And whatever happened in these Secret Service cases, they need to get to the bottom of it. We cannot afford to lose a president. This country is far too divided as we are. It's far too much of a danger to our republic, and they need to get that fixed. And I am fully in support of fully investigating that and getting to the bottom of why that happened. But the bottom line is we need more competency in the federal government. Thank you.
Next question will be drawn, start at the far end with Dale Mercer and come right down the line. In running for election, you must have a passion for those things that you want to go after. Think about 3 events that you would like to work on if you're elected, and what those ideas and solutions you have for those 3 events.
Well, I think I've already been through this, and I'll just run you through it one more time. I want to fully fund your schools. I want to reform campaign finance, and I want to reform lobbying. I think that there are no more important things in this state at the present time. You can come in and you can talk about guns, you can talk about abortion, you can talk about all kinds of things. We have enough gun laws, we have enough abortion laws. We need to get campaign finance under control because money and politics do not mix. We need, let me just give you an example. In Montana, the most you can give to a person running for the state house in Montana is $170. The most you can spend statewide on all state elections, one person in an election cycle, is $25,000. Now, of course, there would have to be more for state senate, more people. Governor, more people. But state house, $170, to me it makes perfect sense. I've got 22,000 people to get to. These right here will carry me everywhere I need to go. I'll throw up some signs, I'll send out one feeling, which is what I will be sending out. And if you don't know me by then, you didn't come to one of these things, so you probably don't care that much in the first place. And again, that's why I thank you people for being here, because to be engaged is the most important thing you can do in politics. And you all should be commended for being here tonight. Thank you.
Rebecca Rader.
First and foremost, I want Missouri to be an attractive place that attracts job creators. And again, I've talked about tax reform, regulation reform. Those are things we need to do. Tort reform are things we need to do so that we can grow our economy and get Missourians working, good paying jobs. Second, education is a passion of mine, obviously, as a retired school teacher. I want to ensure that every single child in the state of Missouri has a top-notch education. In some of our urban areas, we are not doing that currently, and I think that's tragic. I talked to a man at the door recently who has a business in R&D on agricultural products, and he said that even if he can get the money to expand, he can't guarantee that he can find qualified workers, and that needs to be taken care of.
Jacob Turner.
You've heard my passion as a Marine veteran for our military and our veterans. We have less than 20% in Congress now that have served in our military. And they simply are making decisions based on budgetary items rather than the humanity of our military men and women and our veterans. When I'm in D.C., I will stand up, you've heard me speak about this, and defend them against the politicians in Congress. Am I done already, Mark? Okay. And also, when they come home broken in spirit and body, they'll become veterans that need help. We need somebody that full-time is going to be looking after our VA system. I was personally offended, not only by the incumbent, my opponent Emmanuel Cleaver, but others, that when the VA scandal hit, they ran to the microphone. And they said, we should never treat veterans this way. My answer is, where have you been for 10 years, Emmanuel Cleaver?
That's right.
Where have you been? All these politicians have been there for 20 years, 30 years. Where have you been? It's very easy to go down to the VA and sit in those waiting rooms and find out what's going on and to talk to staff. And I've done that. Secondly, we need to get small business moving. And we have the tentacles of Obamacare destroying so much. It's just starting to hit now, folks. It's going to hit us in the pocketbook as consumers. It's going to hit small businesses who are trying to decide, do I hire somebody, do I not hire somebody? Because now they're going to go to the trip. And now they're going to be on the hook for even more money. They're throwing their workers out into the marketplace. The healthcare exchanges. Walmart eliminated the healthcare insurance for 30,000 of the part-time workers. And more are doing that. So I will stand up and vote to repeal Obamacare and replace it with a solution that doesn't hurt small business, that doesn't take over $2 trillion from our seniors and Medicare funds over the next 10 years. And I will protect the American people from this ever-burdening government program that's about to destroy our healthcare system. Thank you. finally, we must have integrity in the halls of Congress. We must have people who will stand up for what they believe in and fight for what they believe in with respect for opposition, but not fold because party leadership told them to, or because they took a bunch of special interest money. I will stand up on my convictions, and I will not be moved, even while I look to build consensus on issues with those who might agree with me on those issues. We need to have a government that functions for we the people, not them the politicians. And I will carry that with me to the floor of Congress when I am your representative in D.C. Thank you.
Missouri needs to be a place you want to live, retire. It needs to be free of burdensome regulations and taxes. I didn't mention tonight, but I will tell you now, I introduced 2 tax bills. Years ago, and I know there's people in this group that remember this, you used to be able to take the income tax, the federal income tax that you paid, deduct it from your state income tax form. And that was changed 20-some years ago, in the early 80s by the governor. What he did, he changed it to make it only $5,000 single filer and 10,000 joint. If you weigh that today, 20-some years later, you take a single parent who's a school teacher who has 2 children, that's an injustice. I introduced a bill in committee to make a change to double to $10,000 for a single filer and $20,000 for a joint filer. That's something that needs to be adjusted seriously, and I will bring it back. Number 2, in an administrative hearing, many times people get called into administrative hearing as far as a dispute over their taxes. Unfortunately, by the statute, and I did not realize this, but if you need somebody to represent you, yeah, you have a choice. You can hire a lawyer. Why can't you hire somebody, like a certified representative agent, to come represent you in a tax hearing? That's important. Going on with small businesses. We need to make this nation, this state, a marketable state to bring small business and expand employment. Okay? Our workers' compensation has really gotten out of hand, and it's had significant impact on our small businesses, along with other bogus lawsuits. C, our education. It's very important. Individuals need to be able to go to school, become certified for a position. Just recently, in 2013, I worked with Dr. Chuck Ambrose from the University of Central Missouri. Innovation Campus Act. People don't remember. Remember the governor came. Well, I'll tell you how it passed. Dr. Chuck Ambrose approached me about carrying this bill, the Innovation Campus program, where an individual can get a 2-year degree prior to graduation in information technology. Stay home, go to school, come out of there debt free. We had corporations who funded that, who sponsored that. Kansas City Power and Light, Black and Beach, Kansas City Water Department. Cerner got involved with it. It's an average investment of $7,000 per student. An individual can stay home and come home and get a 4-year degree. I'm sorry.
Can you vote?
So I preview the 3 issues that I see as most important to us here in this summit in Missouri. So again, it's jobs, it's schools, it's taking care of our seniors. So again, on jobs. Job creators, I always mentioned small business. So let's focus on that. Let's focus on the great small businesses we have here in Lake Summit. Let's make sure that we're going to do tax credits, we're going to do tips. Let's reward those small businesses and not someone from out of state who's going to hop across the state line at the first opportunity. And again, schools. Everybody says they support schools. Everybody says they're behind it. Who won it? But the votes speak for themselves. You can check out the voting records of your legislators. In fact, in the back, you can check out how the Lake Summit School District has ranked the votes of your legislators, whether they've been behind schools or not. So check out for yourselves and see whether your legislators have been trying to fully fund our schools or not. I will get in there and I will support fully funding. And finally, seniors. Again, a population that's often forgotten and marginalized in America. And it's a shame. Seniors have done so much. They have served our country. They have worked hard their whole lives. Let's make sure they're not forgotten in retirement. Let's make sure if they want to stay in their homes, that they can do so. If they need some property tax relief, then let's look at that. If they need health care, let's try and do what we can at state level. Again, Medicaid expansion, let's talk about it. Let's do it, because seniors deserve affordable health care, quality health care, and we should no longer forget about it.
Now we'll have closing remarks by everyone. We'll go in the reverse order. We'll allow 1 minute per candidate. We'll go in the reverse order. Jacob Turk will be first, Gary Cross, Ken Duvall, Rebecca Raver, and then Dale Mercer. Jacob.
Carl. Thank you all for taking our representative republic seriously tonight and coming out here. And you're asking yourself, what can I do to help Jacob get elected? This is a people's campaign. It truly is a grassroots campaign. And each of you can leave tonight and take the word of what you have heard to those around you and ask them, please go out and support this man who's trying to change the type of government we have, to make it responsive to we the people, to shrink the federal government down to a size where we the people can manage it. Pick up the yard signs. Come by our headquarters. We're just right over there at 410 Southeast 3rd Street. Bumper strips, my wife is modeling them back there, but don't look yet. And just help in some way. If everybody will do a little, come November 4th, about 10 p.m., we will shock the political world and we'll shake up Washington, D.C. And they'll know that I will bring your voice to the floor of Congress and that the people are again on the move in this country. My name is Jacob Turk. I ask for and would be privileged to receive your vote on November 4th. Thank you.
Gary Cross.
I think it's very important as a representative going from Jefferson City to have the attitude of bipartisan effort. Every piece of legislation I've passed that's been signed by the governor has been a bipartisan effort. Number one, when I talk about the Innovation Campus Bill, which was signed by the governor, 746, was passed on the House floor 151-2. I'm very appreciative of the other aisle, and I did go in, I did shake their hand and thank them for their support. The tanning bed bill was also signed by the governor this year. This is for individuals 17 and under to get mom or dad's authorization to tan in a tanning bed. Melanoma is deadly. Landlord-tenant relationships. I talked to some circuit court judges. They said the elimination of trial de novo in a court of law, we would definitely accept that because of the fact that our docket is backlogged in St. Louis and also in Jackson County. We would work with you. We can't endorse you. This bill was signed by the governor. This was a bipartisan effort in the legislature. I will tell you this. I go down there with the idea, there's not just one side of the aisle, there's two sides of the aisle. You have to work together. By you returning me to Jefferson City, I will continue to fight for the interests of the residents of the 35th District. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Again, thank you all for coming out this evening, and it's great to see voters engaged in a midterm election. But I know even those of you who are here this evening, who are engaged enough to come out on a rainy night, you're tired and you're probably a little bit sick of the way things have been going, whether it's D.C., whether it's Jeff City. Things just haven't been getting done. The Missouri legislature has been gridlocked. Our roads have fallen apart. Our schools aren't funded. The tax cuts given to businesses make no sense. They're given out on the last day of session, and they're not actually creating jobs. Our seniors are neglected. Our tax code is unfair. So what does all that add up to? It adds up to, I think we need to shake things up a little bit. I think the system is broken in Jeff City. The fact that your legislators will accept lobbyist gifts, it's not right. It's not right that public office is treated the way it is in Jefferson City. I want to go and I want to represent you in Jefferson City, and I want to treat it as a public service. I want to make sure that our roads get repaired. It's just common sense. Let's fix them. I want to make sure that here in May Summit, we get the help we need on our schools so we don't have to raise our tax levy again. It's just common sense. Let's take care of our seniors who worked hard and who are often marginalized in our current tax policy. Just common sense. It's all I want to do. That's all I want to bring to the table. As a fellow Lee Summit resident, someone who's raising his family here, I'm looking out for the interests of this town. And on November 4th, Tuesday, please remember Ken Duvall, State Representative.
Again, I want to always remember when and if I go to Jefferson City that every single dollar that's sent down there has been sent down by a hardworking Missourian. I had a state legislator tell me a number of years ago that it's a lot of fun to spend other people's money. So I want to keep that always first and foremost in my mind. I've had a lot of life experiences, but campaigning for office has been unique. It's been difficult and challenging, but also a lot of fun. The best part of it has been talking to voters. I've walked my district a time and a half. I've talked to hundreds of people in their driveways, on their doors, on the front lawn. We live in a wonderful community, you guys. I can count on one hand the number of people that were unfriendly. Even people that weren't going to support me were pleasant. So I'd be honored to support the people of Lee Summit and Greenwood and Jefferson City, and I'd appreciate your vote on November 4th.
I'm not going to run through the things I've already talked about again. What I am going to tell you is, I was at the last candidate forum, and there was a question about the difference between conservative and liberal. Well, I wanted to answer that question so bad, because there are no conservatives and liberals. We're all Americans, okay? Every one of us in this room is an American. We're all really interested in the same things. Conservatives and liberals agree on more than they disagree on. And I'm pretty sure I agree with all of you in here on more than I disagree on. One thing I will tell you is, I'm gonna support you. I'm gonna take care of your rights. And that means, what you have to understand about freedom is, that means everybody's rights. So, you're gay, you're straight, you're, whatever you are, you have the same rights I have. I'm going to make sure that those rights are protected. And I think that's my job, and I would be more than happy to work for it. Theo Mercer, District 34. Thank you very much.
As we close the evening out, take the opportunity to come up and visit with your candidates. Thank you for the candidates for participating in the 83rd Annual Candidates Forum here tonight. The exchange thoughts and ideas that we go away with. We all go away with something, don't we? And I really appreciate you supporting seniors and lawyers. Also, thank you to the Lee Summit Parks and Recreation Department, the Lee Summit Journal, and the Chamber. And have a good evening, and go Royals.